Okay, so today, Griff, I wanted to talk about something that people ask about all the time and is scary to society. Everything brain related, like we talked about. So injuries and mental illness and okay, so people ask a lot about Alzheimer's. Like they say, my mom has Alzheimer's. What does she understand and what does she not understand? Like you told me one time, autism kids, be careful because they understand everything that's going on in the room. Whether they reply like they do or not, they do, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then most people, it was under mental illness, autism, but I think people would be offended by that because I've heard mothers say it is not a mental illness, is it? It was this morning when I Googled it, but people are so touchy about mental illness. You know what I
It
mean?
was this morning.
Right, right. But I've heard moms
Um,
say it's not. It's just a way of being, a different way of living life.
it's still categorized
Okay,
as mental illness.
okay,
Your mom says it's more of a developmental, um, the way the brain has rewired itself to where it is more an introvert light rather than extrovert light. And your mother knows that she's being extremely broad on this, and she doesn't mean to offend anybody, but to help shed on how people can look at it differently than a mental illness is that it's just a restructured brain.
okay, good. Yeah, my mom was always in defense of my mom. God, she was so big time on not labeling people. That would upset her to no end, especially with mental issues. Oh my God, don't believe that. Don't believe labels because it kind of traps you sometimes, even though you need the help from it sometimes. It puts you in a category. It's dismissive. It's
She says,
dismissive, like, oh, they're crazy.
you are right. Yeah,
Right,
she says, you are right, because as soon as you label someone
right,
and they start to believe in it, then that's the only outcome they'll ever have.
right, right.
That's it.
Oh, Jamie, she was so hardcore on that. She just didn't believe, because if you think about it, Mom, you're so accurate because other than like doing a blood panel or seeing if you're low in vitamins or whatever, it's just one person telling another person you're mentally ill. It's not like a heart that you can see or you have heart disease, or there's a very big danger in that, you know?
She said she agrees to this, and she said, I also wholeheartedly believe that the brain can shift and grow as easily as we can change a thought. We can as easily change the way we use our brain. And
Right.
if we convince somebody that they can't, that this is their label for the rest of the life, we're undermining their success to heal from it.
Okay. So, Griffin, Mom, and everyone, that leads me to a huge question. All the mental illness that they categorize as mental illness, like schizophrenia, dementia, Alzheimer's, autism, depression, anxiety disorders, um, depressive disorder, just psychosis, anything. Is your gut related to your brain, and can it be helped and aided by diet?
Hmm, that's a great question. The answer I hear is yes.
Yes.
The gut is directly related to the brain.
Okay.
Griffin's talking.
Okay.
Griffin's showing me pictures. I'm asking in my head, where am I? What am I looking at? I'm not in the stomach. I'm in the small intestines.
Taking her
And
sports shitty, huh, Griff?
there, get back to a group. In, what the hell? I don't know how to describe that. So just tell me what you want me to say, Griffin. In the small intestines, there are bacteria, very small, millions bacteria that have the ability to send an electrical current or communicate to the brain through triggered of like minerals or hormones or something. Like it has the
Microbes
signal
in
it
your gut.
does.
Microbes in your gut. Microbes.
Yeah,
Yes.
tiny, but lots of them. And think of
Right.
ants, you know how one ant says a squeak and all of them are doing the same thing. It's almost an instant conscious colony, even though they're separate microbes,
Uh-huh.
or I
Uh-huh.
think I said bacteria earlier, so
Right.
sorry about that.
Well, there's
Um,
something called dysbiosis, Jamie. dysbiosis, which is an imbalance of microbes in the gut, and it causes inflammation of the gut that have been linked to anxiety, depression, and mood disorders.
a lot of your mother's talking. Marianne saying a lot of our diagnosis of mental illness is actually an imbalance in the physical, like gut. Um,
Yes.
even even to extremes like schizophrenia and bipolar, gut health needs to be looked at primary as the foundation, and then from that point, assessment of the brain, and if there is, use another word, if in the brain it was developed with maybe a cell that was out of place, like identifying if it's a physical issue in the actual brain. But to start with the gut as primary source, she is saying in the way that she views the human body, she no longer looked at the brain as being the central core of memory, of emotion, of, you know, the core existence of the physical body. I look at the entire system, she says. I look at the gut brain, which is the microbes. Is that what you said? All that
Something
down
like
there
that.
to the
Something
gut
like
brain.
that. Yeah.
And the the spinal cord, the nervous system, and the endocrine system, and then the brain. She says, I look at all of those parts, which makes it more systematic and not just a motherboard that's controlling the entire computer. It's different, 3, 4, 5 different versions of a motherboard that are communicating together that are operating the entire system. She goes, if we don't change our healthcare and how we view ourselves to this way of thinking, we're going to fail to cure ourselves. We're going to fail to understand how to support those that are in pain or that are in suffering or that are labeled with mental disease or illness. She's talking about a diagnosis instrument, but it's not for the head though. It's for the gut. I don't know how they do that.
There's some kind of connection between the gut and brain, Jamie, and it's called something, and I can't remember what it's called. But it's literally they found out they're close
They're
cousins.
connected. They're one of the
Yeah, they're
same, even though
connected. Yeah.
one is smaller, it has the reaction first and the bigger brain responds.
Right.
It's like the bigger brain is the engine, but it's not the first and foremost thinker.
Right.
Griffin says when we do tests on the gut, he says we need to look at poop. Poop is
Right.
very important.
Boys and poop, I swear to God. Okay. To see what we're digesting.
Yep. Because then you can see what's being kicked out, what's being used, and what's not being used. But no, your mom is showing me some kind of system. It's like a scan, it's done by a computer, and you can actually read because there is That sounds so far-fetched, but here we go. Marianne says that there is a current, like an electrical current that's released from these microbies, whatever you just call
Right.
them,
Microbes or whatever.
microbes. And you can get a read of how active they are or how dormant they are from this scan because of this call and response system.
Right.
And she says if it's not out now, it'll be coming out soon.
Right. Like neurofeedback.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Because, in the old days, they used to give you electric shock. I think they still do it at the last resort now.
I've had it.
Did it work?
No, they had inconclusive results. I'm special.
I know you are, girl. 150. Yeah. Yep. Mom. Okay, so here's the problem though. When you have someone with Alzheimer's, dementia, schizophrenia, I've seen all of them up close and personal. I used to dance with my friend's grandma who had Alzheimer's or dementia and watch the blank TV screen. She's as sweet as can be unless you turned off the TV, but there was nothing on the TV. How do you control, like, I don't want to use the word control, but okay, there's a girl on Facebook right now, sweetheart of a lady, but she has schizophrenia. How does her family help her when she doesn't want to be helped and she thinks her family's against her? Like, she already went too far with it. Like, how do you get control of those situations? And they don't want to take their medicine. They don't want to go to the doctor. I mean, you need like an elephant tranquilizer.
Griffin goes, almost.
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 It can be bad.
Marianne says it's what rehabs are for
Okay.
and getting the help of a team. And yes, it does require, calming the mind down because it's so far imbalanced.
Right.
The wiring in the system, it's getting fed and stimulated too much, and it starts to activate different parts of the brain, which create these storylines that aren't real, and they
Yeah.
begin to see things that don't exist.
Right.
They don't know what to believe in, so they choose to believe in everything that's happening and that everybody else is wrong because that's the
Right.
mode of survival, is to prioritize self. Marianne thinks it's such an interesting thing to remember that at any given moment when we're not feeling good or that something is, wrong or desperately wrong, we have no problem prioritizing ourselves. It's when we're happy, we start to second guess. Well, everything's fine. I guess I'll help this person who's not well.
Right.
Your mom says, let's not get into that habit. It's always self first. It's not selfish.
Right.
But once we can rescue the mind from running away or being overstimulated, then we can get them back on track with the use of diet, plant medicine, CBD. That's being talked about quite a bit.
Right.
Because that's really helping a lot of these imbalances. Just maybe it would be better to call it a mental imbalance rather than a mental disorder.
Right.
Because disorder, it still fits. It's out of
Right.
order,
Right. Right.
which is imbalance, but maybe illness is going too far.
Right.
Um, unless you have something physically in there. She said with Alzheimer's, it's
Mom, Jamie says Alzheimer's.
how do you say it?
Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's?
I think so, right, Mom? But let's just call it old timers. No, I'm just
Old timer. That old
kidding.
timer thing. Alzheimer's? It's not alls.
No,
I
that's
put
like
extra S's and T's.
kindergarten. Kindergarten.
Let me look at. That's my dyslexic
I don't
brain.
think
Just
there's any T in there, but we can add one.
Alzheimer's. Yeah, she didn't understand me. Alzheimer's.
Yeah, it's too complicated. So let's just call it Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
Alzheimer's. I gotta practice. Um, Alzheimer's. Um, your mom was talking about the fluidity in the brain, the moisture element, how it dries up and how it can't process proteins. So this is where we're looking at an imbalance in the physical part of the body. But if we were to notice this or even know that we were predisposed
Uh-huh.
of it, she says that we could eat more of that type of protein, take it
Mom,
in abundance, change the way that we, you know, feed ourselves, and then we could avoid it altogether.
Mom, are you reading my notes or are you just this bright? Because
What's on your notes?
check it out right now, Mom. Are you over here reading and cheating? Okay, so
She said maybe and started laughing.
healthy fats may prevent Alzheimer's disease and dementia by reducing beta amyloid plaques. Food sources include cold water fish such as salmon, tuna, trout, mackerel, seaweed, and sardines. You can also supplement with fish oil. Now, if that doesn't say you have a dry brain, I don't know what does. You need oil.
You have a dry brain. She will add to that coconut oil.
Right. It says that a ketogenic diet will help because they used it for epilepsy years ago and they found that the brain reacts well to that.
She agrees.
Okay.
And she says, and she's got her finger out, so that's when you pay attention.
Yes.
And it's so interesting because she doesn't point it at you. It's like this.
Right.
And something to note is that once you find the diet that is shifting the body
Mm-hmm.
drastically to get back into balance,
Mm-hmm.
she says it doesn't mean to stay on that particular diet forever. Just like you had the experience before where you ate one way and it created a result, you'll have it this way. If you change it to a different diet, you're going to get a result. You're kind of talking to me in circles, but I see it in my head. You're saying everything in moderation. So to go back, phase it. Don't stick to it 100% for the rest of your life because that can create other issues.
Right. And is it a paradox, Mom? Like you take one thing for one thing and then it ends up causing it, goes in a circle, just doesn't work anymore. Right. Like Xanax. All of a sudden it causes anxiety instead of relieves it. Yeah.
Yes. So she said you have to be very aware because the other thing is your body doesn't stay the same.
Right. So it won't respond.
Yes.
Mix it up a little.
In 3 years, you are a different being. In 7 years, you are a completely different being.
Right.
And she says, and that diet might not have the same effect on you. So you have to be wise enough to constantly pay attention to how you're feeling when you're eating the food and make
Right.
those adjustments as you go. And that's how you win the game.
Right. Exactly. Because it says like B vitamins for schizophrenia are so important. Like all the B vitamin, B3, B6, B9, B12, thiamine, B1. Like usually a person will test low. And I have a story, like there's a million stories, but like um there was someone like Jaime, Mom, that was crazy. Like she was seeing her dead. She was seeing her dead grandma. So they put her in a mental hospital. And go ahead and laugh, Jaime. I'm not putting you away. I'm not going to 51 if you don't want. So, anyways, they found out she had um, metals in her kidneys. It was making her crazy. I mean, it was a lot more than seeing her grandmother. She just went nutso bonanza. That was probably one of the good things that she saw her grandmother. But we always assume that it's mental instead of seeing what's going on, what's married to it.
Right.
Right.
It's the physical body that's doing it.
Right. Like you could have heart disease and it's causing Alzheimer's. Like they're married, I think.
Yeah, she says, I feel like the mental imbalances are just expressions of what the physical body is doing.
Right.
It's the what? What's a bullhorn? Oh,
Dun, 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 dun. I don't know.
the thing you pull and you talk into it, it makes it very loud.
Right.
Hey, everybody, come around here.
For
Griff
the
says
people,
that's what your brain is.
right. Right.
That's
Exactly.
the
That's
lens.
That's why football damages your brain. It wasn't your brain to begin with. It was the CTE. It's the ramifications of what it did to you. And then it just started to knock your brain around.
To mush it.
Yeah. Like jello. So then you start having all the side effects of it because you cannot handle it. Cannot handle it.